Well, I often see my work like my life. It's all this journey, either through the mind, through the soul, through the world. And what that journey is about is it allows me to see myself from so many different perspectives.
When the thoughts are calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected.
Welcome back to another episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm super excited to share with you this beautiful soul, Michael, also known as the Sleeping Dog, or Michael Holliday. And it feels like your whole life is a holiday, man. You are living like the spiritual rock star life where you're traveling, you're pilgrimaging, which is the essence, I think, of what we call going on tour, so to speak, and passing the message on. Like, you've been living this, and your specialty, your expertise is Vedic astrology.
Yeah.
That's what we share, is the love for the stars and the navigational path and tool that it is used as. But you come from the complete opposite side. And actually the beginning, apparently it's an older even, right?
It is and it isn't. They a point in history, they sort of came together, and Vedic actually took a lot from the West.
Okay.
In order to do the natal chart astrology I do now.
Okay.
Actually, before that, it was a lot of just predicting the transits.
Yes.
But the 27 moon signs were especially important for that then.
That number, man, 27, it's another multiple of 9, and it just comes back 7 and 2, 9. There's something about it. Every time you mention the 27 moons, I feel like that's something important, and you're going to teach us about this. He's going to actually give a live reading of my chart.
Yeah.
And what I'll be kind of doing to connect the dots, as this is what we do here, this is what the podcast is I'm going to see where the Vedic is explaining these aspects that I've understood only through the Western chart. So we'll kind of have a conversation of that, just going back and forth. And it's based on the same thing, right? Time, location.
Yeah, time of birth, place of birth, those kind of things. Keep in mind, I'm going to be reading your moon chart. So You're used to your sun chart. So that's a whole different you, right? We're made up of so many bodies, so many kleshas.
So, is that the word?
The bodies.
The physical
the physical, the mental, the emotional, the intellectual, the spiritual sort of bodies. Okay. And so most Westerners sort of know themselves through the sun, which from my perspective, because I really go into the charts, is really only barely even 1/3 of the story.
Because apparently, your moon sign is somewhere, it's what you are on the inside. It's what people don't see.
Yeah, well, I think generally in the Vedic, we say the ascendant will follow quite often because it's our physical existence. And so everybody's more or less in touch with that. And our emotional being as well. We all kind of know how we feel. Even people who are disembodied, they're like, well, I don't feel anything. And you're like, oh, that's because your moon is numb.
And you can see that in the chart.
Yeah, you can see it in the chart, but they can feel it. They're in touch. We're in touch with our moon. Our sun in Vedic astrology, it's the soul. It comes through in those subtleties and how we express ourselves. Right? So a sun in Leo might be very expressive, but if the ascendant is, say, in Aquarius, they're not going to have that beautiful regal body that the Leos have, right? They're going to be a normal sort of average.
And you're talking about Vedic now, from the Vedic perspective.
Yeah, the Vedic perspective.
So that if your sun, so that's why you said to me, the first thing was that your ascendant apparently is more what we look at. And that's what you would call your sign is your ascendant sign. Unlike Western, where it's your sign is your solar sign.
We would actually, if an Indian Vedic person asked you for your sign, just said, what sign are you? Mm-hmm. He actually wants to know your moon sign of the 27 nakshatras.
Wow. Of the 27, you said nakshatras.
Nakshatras. They're considered the 27 wives of the moon or the 27 homes of the moon. Well,
I remember that word, nakshatra. What does that Sanskrit translate to exactly?
Nakshatra. Geez, that's a good question. here I am telling everyone how much of a professional in nakshatras I am.
It's okay. This isn't a segment on etymology here, bro. Like, Dad, I don't care if the mechanic knows exactly the make and meaning of the wrench. I care he knows how to use the wrench and fix my car. So
I'm glad you asked that question now, because I feel I'll correct my foolishness next time I hear the question.
I love your humility. I'll correct my foolishness, he says. Like, that's how you can trust someone who has as much knowledge as he does, is because with that knowledge doesn't amplify arrogance. It actually amplifies humility and the constant desire to become even more knowledgeable and more aware.
I'm busy looking at the bottom of the barrel, not the labels on top of the barrel.
Yes. And that's important, because labels and covers, storybook covers, could really mislead us.
Yeah. That's really what Vedic astrology and the whole sort of symbolic language and archetypes teaches us to do, is to see beyond the surface. And look beyond that surface.
And for the listeners who already by now are like, most of you I know are like versed in astrology and these navigational tools, just to remind you, if you have yet to, this is the reason why I'm bringing Mike up and on this podcast, is you got to get your reading from your Vedic astrology. It is completely different, but it's equally as revelatory in the sense that, like, whoa, there's even other layers. I mean, Michael, who I met you through Seven, told me that's how he put it to me. He was like, it's like seeing it through a whole different dimension. That's how he described it, and it sounded quite eloquent way of putting it. I didn't quite understand what the hell that meant until I actually had my reading from you, and then I was like, holy shit, yeah. It was equally as wow from when I had my first natal chart reading from Michael Moon. All these Michaels, like, wow, surrounded. I know Michael, the word means of God. I remember one Michael told me this. Michael, it's like one of the
Michael, one of the angels, the angel God. Of justice.
Well, I've been blessed to be surrounded by so many of you, Michaels, and now I get to have the version that comes with the full, like, upgraded Vedic reading. This is amazing, and we get to share this with you. Make sure the links, everything will be below. If you want your own reading, you can reach out directly. Mike works from anywhere remotely on the world. As you can see, laptop in his hand. He is offering. You're doing readings, right?
I do readings online. I've got lots of students, so sort of one-on-one formats we work. Next group class isn't coming until the fall, but it's going to be a 6-month or a 1-year class. It'll be a significant course.
Another thing you're doing is you're really teaching others how to become their own astrologer, which is something I often say. Like, don't ever just take my word for it. Learn your natal chart. Learn how to be your own astrologer.
Yeah. It's the difference between, you come for a single reading, it's like stopping on the street and asking for directions. And now you might do that even if you know where you're going, right? To confirm that. But to learn astrology for yourself, well, then you're holding the map and compass. You're good to go.
Yes, exactly.
No problem.
And just like even if you had something going on, your health, you don't want to just take one doctor's advice for it, because he might say, just amputate the arm. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, if we use that metaphor. Like, really become your own doctor, become your own astrologer, become your own everything, and simply consult with other experts.
Yeah, and it's not just the map of this outer life, like, where am I going, what's going to happen in my life. It's actually like it's an incredible map for the inward journey, right? Who am I? This is the science of that from the ancients. This is the DNA analysis of who you are from that ancient perspective. And
I love that, man. Can I always say, who, because that's what we seek to answer those questions in this podcast. Who, where, what, and why the fuck am I? Like, it's the great philosopher questions. Do you dare actually know who you are, why you are, what you are, when? Okay, we know, we agree it's the 21st century, but even that, apparently the calendars are all different. Like, according to the Vedic calendar, this is different. Yeah.
So, but even when you look at the Vedic calendar and you really go into the history of it, it's off as well.
Really, eh?
Well, it's off from the seasons, you could say.
When you say seasons,
which is why that's why the West froze their chart.
So what do you mean by that? They froze their chart?
It doesn't. the elliptical movement of the apparent elliptical movement of the planets.
Right.
It's shifting a little bit every year.
Processional slippage,
And-
I've heard that term. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why, well, I'll say in 100 or I think it's more like 200,000 years from now, the Western astrologers will look into the sky and say, hey, it's Cancer.
Wow.
But actually it's going to be Capricorn up there. So it'll be,
So that's due to the fact that there's an elliptical orbit. So there's this shifting. I remember
Yeah.
Santos Bonacci explained this.
but I'll
Go on,
I'll
yeah,
just
carry
tell-
on,
yeah.
carry on.
So what'll also happen then is it'll be the seasons will also be completely, by the Vedic chart, they'll also be completely flipped.
Flipped as well.
So by
yeah.
the zodiac, our summer is going to have the winter
Right.
sky, right? And so the Western astrologer, even 200,000 years from now or whatever, spring will still be sort of represented by Taurus and Gemini and these light planets like this.
But the idea of the season, the temperature, and everything will have changed. It was like winter will be, because that's what Einstein had predicted. Apparently, like based on the crust and the core, that there's this slippage that's happening from in the planet itself.
Well, it's interesting because maybe the Vedic chart is tracking that slippage. I've never really read into that. It's quite interesting.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, definitely something to look more into. So you're gonna be okay. You're comfortable. You got your laptop in your hand.
Yeah, let's
I feel like you got your voice, like your words, your sacred words. Sword is your voice, and then you got like your shield over here. I feel like I'm in the presence of a spiritual fellow warrior. It's honestly, man, such a pleasure to have you here, bro. I want to say it again. I met you about 6 months ago. It was an exact opposite season. And it's kind of cool like that we're here again now in the other season, because it's like you can never understand anything unless I think Da Vinci said, unless you looked at it from 2 or 3 different perspectives, and then he would draw it, and then he knew it was. So it's interesting. You're going to give me this reading, which you've already given me when we were up there, you know what I mean, and the sun was shining. Now you're giving me this reading, and we're sharing this reading. We're doing a comparative of this reading while it's snowing outside. So it's cool. It's just like yin and yang. Yeah, coming together.
Yeah.
This big bang.
So let's get some warmth going on in here, I guess.
Yes.
So the first thing I look at here, I'm going to look from your moon chart. So your moon's in Libra, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
your Jupiter and Mars are also in Libra. And so that makes you very relational. So moon and Libra, of course, very comfortable in relationships, very comfortable to have a partnership. They like to have somebody around, even if sometimes even if you're just going to buy shoes, right? Like
Totally. Companionship. We love companionship.
they really like having someone there. And so Jupiter is also with that moon. So that brings this sort of warm, expansive quality to it. Jupiter's not great in Libra, though, because Jupiter likes the global and universal audience.
Adventure. Oh, okay.
And Libra's this one-on-one audience. Okay, really good for interviewing.
Sure,
Really good for kind of counseling or any kind of like really one-on-one work with people.
Okay.
Very, very good for that kind of thing.
Okay. But like Jupiter being there as well, it's a bit of a conflict, is it? Or is it a bit of like a juxtaposition?
It is a bit of a conflict because it's not bad, because Jupiter brings like this warmth and openness and things like that to relationships. The problem with Jupiter when he's bringing openness to the relationships is sometimes they're too open. It's like, what is this? Is this even a relationship, or are you with them, or what's even going on here?
Oh, okay.
And so for durable relationship, it's certainly going to cause conflict.
Got you.
Because there's that too broad-minded, too open-minded, too liberal.
Got it.
And Jupiter and Venus are enemies by Vedic astrology.
Jupiter and Venus. So not Mars and Venus, Jupiter and Venus. So this is interesting. In Western, it's more like the duality is Mars and Venus.
Well, Jupiter and Venus are the two gurus. The Orthodox guru and the heterodox or Gnostic guru.
Remember that word? Heterodox. I had to ask you on the dock, what is heterodox?
It's like the Gnostics, the mystics.
The mystics, the esoteric sect.
Yeah. And so Jupiter's following scripture, traditional scriptures, an orthodox path.
Right.
And Venus is well, I usually say teaching the beauty of life. You've got to enjoy life.
So that's more like the esoteric aspect.
Exactly.
Which would make sense because the beauty, like the Greeks believe nature is the ultimate expression of beauty, and the Rosicrucians see nature like the indigenous people. I think even in Egypt, natur means God, natur, nature.
Yeah.
So like Venus, a feminine expression of the appreciation of beauty, is like the real connectedness to nature versus like the squiggly lines, as they called them, that the colonials kind of came here with their books and scripture, like the ministers kind of interpreted it as. So you have the male and female kind of dichotomy there as well. And you're saying they're both gurus, but one is more about like structure, almost like religion.
Well, Jupiter sort of teaches fairness, Jupiter teaches justice.
Justice, okay.
He teaches us to do what's right. To take the high road sort of idea.
Okay.
Venus is about fairness rather than justice.
Hold on. Fairness and justice. Let's just further.
They're very, very different concepts. Yeah.
And let's distinguish them further. The word distinguish, after all, means to bring more light to. So what do you mean by fairness and justice? Let's hammer in on that.
So justice, justice is related with Jupiter, but on a sense, Jupiter's the guru of Mars and Sun and Moon, and so they're sort of always fighting for justice, and justice has a certain sense of retribution to it as well, right?
So it includes the idea of there must be a sentence, there must be some type of retribution, punishment, payment. Yes.
We need justice.
Justice.
Fairness isn't looking for that punishment. It's looking that everyone is treated. It almost would treat everybody sort of as the individual and be really fair in this situation and really sees the broader points of it. It's not looking for punishment. It's looking for peace.
Not looking for punishment, looking for peace.
Yeah. Jupiter, and that's really the big difference. You could say Venus wants peace and Jupiter wants justice.
Interesting. Now I get it. That's interesting. Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that. And Jupiter and justice, they both start with the prefix, the J and the U. Like
Juno.
Might have something to do, like, because words are not random. They're always like these prefixes are very specific. And again, connecting the dots. That's all I've been doing. I'm a wordsmith myself. I'm constantly like rapping and rhyming and that's how I've seen, like, there's a lot of similarities when you see, like, human and humor and humility. It's, like, all, like, the formula for the ultimate experience as a human being, you know? So, interesting. Justice is, like, there must be some kind of repayment. There's, like, and that allows the openness of vengeance even, maybe. Whereas Venus is, like, no, man, it's, like, we can all just coexist and harmoniously.
Yeah, well, it's, like, a nice Jupiter isn't going to go vengeance, right? That's when you get a debilitated Jupiter. Jupiter's kind of like harsh somewhere. That's a lower. That's not justice, right?
Lower vibrational expression of that same archetype.
Exactly. So,
but ultimately, it's about justice versus fairness. Or equanimity is another word for that.
That's,
Equitability
Venus,
is the
equitable. That's all Venus characteristics, Libra characteristics.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's the first thing you said that stands out. You feel the moon is in Libra.
Yeah, Moon, Jupiter, Mars, all in Libra.
All of them together. So that's a stellium, they call that. No?
So maybe in the West we don't deal with that.
You never heard that term?
I call it a conjunction. Well,
conjunction.
Because it's 3 planets, I call it a planetary war. And in a sense, it could be, because that's in Libra, so that's where we find peace.
Yes.
And so it could be these 3 planets. Not a bad war, because they're all friends, Mars, Jupiter, Moon. But they all have a different way of finding balance. Jupiter needs that balance. Mars needs to kind of fight for peace. Mars is a little dangerous. You see a lot of military people with that Mars in Libra.
Totally.
Right?
And being a Spartan, like my descendants is Spartans, right? And they really, it's like, understand that for peace, love must attack. I've heard that, like in Greek, translated, like it has to attack. But it's interesting because they're all ultimately trying to bring peace, just in different ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the Mars-Moon conjunction, Mars is a little hot for the moon. The default emotion
Totally.
becomes the anger, becomes the heat.
Totally.
The emotion's always kind of boiling a little
Boiling,
bit, right?
yes.
That kind of thing. So there is a lot of that. And then they're all in Libra, and they're not about fairness and peace. They're all a little bit uncomfortable there.
Interesting.
So it gives some emotional uncomfort, a little bit of tug of war inside
so
sometimes.
This is interesting because my moon in my Western sign is in Scorpio, and it's the same thing. It's like it's in a detrimental sign. The moon doesn't want to be. It's not in its exaltation. It's in its I forgot the word for
debilitation.
it. Yeah,
Scorpio,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Like it's completely, again, explaining something. You're explaining the same thing. I've heard the same thing about my moon sign in Western zodiac, that being in Scorpio makes it very difficult. You know what I mean? Really bubbly and boily, and Scorpio's ruled by Mars, like exactly what you just said. So like to hear the same thing from a different perspective, it's really wow.
One of the differences that come out, say, by Vedic astrology, so your moon in Libra, it finds its comfort zone. Well, usually Libra likes to compromise. Mars and Jupiter, anyways, make some problems with that, a little bit, some friction. But usually the moon in Libra wants to kind of compromise and things. It's comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. So much to the point of.
But if it was Scorpio, the comfort zone is this change. So anytime things did get stable, the moon would upend it to get that. Oh. That
it's
chaos.
Comfortable only in
the
change
chaos,
itself.
Yeah, in chaos, right? And so that's why the moon is considered debilitated in Scorpio. It wants that unknown too, so it's always kind of cutting its bridges and going.
Right.
And that's what's often sabotage is like any time a relationship or a home or anything gets comfortable, they usually sabotage it somehow because it's not comfortable for them.
Right.
So anyways.
Right.
And so you've got to, I'm sure there's problems in any relationship, in any home, but I feel like your moon is more in the Libra side when I look at it that way.
Interesting. Feels right. I'm definitely a companion person. I feel my Mars is in Libra in my zodiac of the Western, and how I understand that is like Mars is your action energy, and being in Libra, it's a detrimental place for Mars to be in, but it's because I don't want to take any action confidently without knowing my whole team is with me. Like I have to consult with everybody. It's not just, even though I'm a Leo and sometimes you think it's like that, like just whatever I say goes. It's like I can't do that. With Mars in Libra, I'm a different kind of Leo. I'm a Leo that's like standing for like a team, and I have to feel like I've got the blessing of the whole team before I can move. So yeah, that resonates, man. Interesting. So Moon is in Libra in the Vedic, along with Jupiter and Mars.
Yeah. It's funny, sometimes I'm writing about all these different planets and I'm saying like just how great they are and all the magic, and say like Rahu and Ketu and this mystery and that's in them. But all the time, if you're reading astrology, at the end of the day, if you want a spiritual path, you're focusing on the sun. That is where you'll find your highest truth. That's where you'll find your most authentic self. Is where that sun is. Well, I often see my work like my life. It's all this journey, either through the mind, through the soul, through the world. And what that journey is about is it allows me to see myself from so many different perspectives. And perspective is, I think, a very, very important word in spirituality, especially if we're thinking like you want to be a broad-minded person. Well, that means you have to be able to see from everybody's point of view.
Right. And perspective, exactly.
Yeah.
The truth never exists in any one perspective. It only emerges as the patterns observed within the collective.
So
One of my favorite.
So it's very much about taking your perspective. Even if you read the old like classic tantras and stuff like this, there's one practice. It's like the last sort of bodily, physical practice. And so then you have to put all your awareness on the little toe of your left foot.
Of your left foot.
Little toe, and it's sort of as far away from the brain. It's the furthest extremity sort of on the body.
And from the brain, the right brain, which is apparently the one connected to the heart. So interesting. The left, right away I'm paying attention. Why the left toe?
And so
that's the idea. You're going to the awareness of the most foreign, distal.
And from there, then you can take your awareness and you can put it like, I can be aware from your perspective and I can see the world from her perspective.
Okay.
And you start to take your awareness, anyone who's sort of practiced the body awareness stuff, practices, be aware of your hand, be aware of your arm, be aware of your leg, or whatever they do, right? And that's what a lot of it's not just be aware of your hand. You put your consciousness into that part of the body and see the whole world from the perspective of, say, your little toe. And experience the world from your little toe. And if you can do that, well, then maybe you can experience the world. I can experience the world from your perspective. And maybe we can do that.
That's a beautiful, that's poetic even, like just, and that's why a lot of these guided meditations, they do that. They make you go through like a body scan, they call that, I think.
Yeah, there's a, body awareness is really good. There's a lot of ways, lots can come from it. It's really deep
totally
practice.
I mean, as a gymnast, I could tell you firsthand, maybe it's more physical and visceral for me, but like I am very much aware with even the tiniest deviation of like one of my fingers when I'm in a handstand, because that one little movement will change what's going on with how well I've stacked my bones and how well I'm plumb, as they call it. Plumb is like 90 degrees, right? But like even like by spreading your toes, which is something I learned in yoga with regards to hand balancing, that's the opposite of what we learned in gymnastics, which is like point your toes and bring them together. But like spreading the toe, I did notice it created even more space in my shoulders, but you feel those minute differences naturally when you're doing something like gymnastics or yoga, and I think that's the whole purpose of those practices, is to give you access to that degree of minutia.
Yeah, well, it's like, if you can become aware of your physical body, then you become more aware of your emotional body, then more aware of your intellectual body, and then more, and you keep bringing that awareness deeper inside.
That's the theme, becoming more aware.
Yeah. And that's, again, perception. That's how you become more aware. I
remember that too. It was an elder who said, he was in his 80s, this guy, this brotherhood that I was part of for some time, and he was like the elder of this brotherhood, and he said, self-awareness is not only your awareness of yourself through your inner self, it's awareness of how others, like you just said, perspective, how others see you.
And how others see any given situation. Look at any war. If any one of the people going rah-rah on either side of that war took a minute and honestly saw things from the other side, well, what would happen to their bloodlust for war if they honestly...
Would that war even continue?
Exactly.
Seriously.
And so this is where our greatest blocks in life is the perceptions we're not willing to see. We're not... don't want to see through their eyes.
Yeah. And that's the difference between ignorance and ignorance. Like, ignorance is not knowing some shit. Ignorance is being told it and still ignoring the damn thing because it's inconvenient and creating cognitive dissonance. And man, what is the next thing that pops out? Like when you're...
So, well, earlier on, something popped out. You're going human, ha. You were saying all these ha words.
Yeah.
Anyways, and when you were saying that, I had a peek here and I kind of laughed because a lot of these moon signs really have the sounds are a big part of it. You can hear the ha.
Interesting.
And so there is
very
one
vowel ah. The ah.
Yeah. So your Saturn is in Hasta. And that's sort of getting towards the end of the end of Virgo. And so Saturn is like, well, duty bound to work and to deal with imbalances. Getting stuck in that a little bit, Saturn, things can take a long time. A lot of patience has to come there. Saturn, he's in the 12th house from your moon, which also means like probably has something to do with staying out here, out of the city, a little bit isolated.
Totally.
And so being sort of shut away to a
like
certain...
needing that. You're saying needing in that, like thriving in that more than being in a dense...
Well, Saturn can make it a little dense. It gets lightened by some other things, but Saturn sort of does bring a little bit of that darkness into the isolation to a certain degree. Now, what happens there is Mercury rules Virgo. And so then I look at the condition of Mercury, and he's down there with Sun in your 10th house of career. And so you've got that 12th house Mercury home studio down in Cancer, actually in the 10th house. And so it's kind of making this home studio sort of idea. You're talking about like making people laugh and people making fun of you and this sort of thing. Some of that comes in because of your Sun Mercury conjunction. So Sun is the way you express yourself.
Right.
Mercury's a little bit like a teenager, fun and games and easy and light and not very serious and that sort of thing. But it's kind of
adolescence. Teenage, like you said. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like the way you you'll always express yourself like a young person.
Interesting. Wow.
The light you shine, it helps people remain very youthful that way.
Yes. Fit Hop, my whole brand and trademark, like Fit Hop. I'm teaching, but ultimately the essence of it is through a language that hip hop is very adolescent. It's very teenage. It's very like, rhythm and rhyme. And it's just like, it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can see that with the conjunction of Mercury and the Sun.
Mercury and Sun. But there's a certain part, because I want to come back to Saturn, who's in Hasta. Hasta.
Yes.
So
like Saturn, the laughing Buddha.
Saturn's the work. It becomes a bit of work, your work to do that, to make people laugh, to figure it out, to arrange that sort of the joke, you could say, to set it up to a certain degree.
Oh, wow, man. Wow. And so, that's cool. Wow, you could see that even like to the point of the phonetics.
Yeah. Oh, Hasta's. I love that with the phonetics of Hasta.
I remember being explained to me as the heart chakra.
Is different than ha.
Okay.
Ha, I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Which is different. Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe is related with Leo.
Leo in the heart. Yeah. When they do toning, when they go through the chakras, all the vowels, and I remember was the heart,
So we get this kind of thing. We also have a chart on the side here. We call it a Vimshottari Dasha. I usually just call it like, this period of your life. And so you're in a Mercury Sun period right now. And so that Mercury and Sun coming together in the 10th house means, your whole life is revolving around what you do and your work and your career.
Right. The 10th house, which is rules career.
It rules career, rules reputation.
Reputation, social, public sort of status. Or
Sun there, these people usually want to do like they work on their own. Or they either have to be the boss or work alone usually.
Or work alone. Not necessarily the boss, but the boss of themselves, like not having to answer to.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is beautiful, but it also comes with the responsibility, that idea. With great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Totally.
So that becomes what this period is really all about. They're in Cancer together, so your Sun is Cancer here. So
is that okay? So that's what the Vedic chart Sun for me is it's in Cancer. Because that's what I understand. Every time I've heard people explain to me, I discover what I am in Vedic. It's always like the adjacent sign prior.
Mostly,
most of the time.
One sign is 30 degrees. The charts change by 24 degrees. And that's why your Mars stayed in Libra.
Okay.
Because it was at, would have been about 27 degrees Libra on the west. So here it's at 3 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that makes sense though? I mean, a lot of Cancerian aspects to me for sure. Like my North Node in the West is Cancer. I think my Venus as well is Cancer. And from what I once was described, that meant like very in touch with divine feminine, very nurturing and very committed to family. And that's why I always see the Leo even in me, like the pride actually comes back to the family. Because even a family of lions is called a pride. To me, it's not just about, look at me. It's like, look at us. Yeah. This is my fam. It's my tribe.
But the Sun doesn't normally do very good in Cancer.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. No, I was explaining this earlier.
Interesting. So why? Why wouldn't it?
This is like, okay, so the nuclear family, right? Mama is home and the couple kids are home and Papa's at work.
Right.
Well, what happens when Papa comes home? Shh, everybody be quiet. Everything's got to be clean.
Yeah.
Papa's here. It's too much heat in the home. It's too much authority in the home. The home is a place where the mother's supposed to be taking care of that, where it's light and she's taking care of everybody equally. The father will always sort of like support the smartest kid the most, give them the most attention, the best kid or whatever it is.
Favoritism.
Yeah, and that's because Father's trying to, anyways, he wants everybody to rise, but he's going to focus his little bit of attention that he's not working on the best place. Where it's Mama's job to make sure everybody gets fed and everybody gets equal love. And so in the home, the sun is too hot. It makes uncomfortable kind of for everybody. Like I said, Papa's home now. Like, shh, clean your stuff up. Go sit in your room. Dinner will be ready.
It's not as natural. It's not as at ease. It's almost like you have to put on a certain...
Exactly.
Perform a certain... That would be like part of trying to appease. You're not at ease because you're trying to appease.
Yeah, but the sun in the home anyways won't be very appeasing because the Papa's the boss.
Right.
At the end of the day, Mama's supposed to be the boss of the home, but the sun comes and Papa becomes the boss.
Right.
Of the home, and so it makes it a bit uncomfortable for everyone.
Interesting. So that's what you get with the sun. And is the sun conjunct anything in Cancer there?
Conjunct Mercury. So Mercury sort of...
Oh, right. Yeah.
The Mercury will...
That's right. Because in my Western, Sun and Mercury are both in Leo. So basically, in this case, Sun and Mercury are still together, but just because of that offset.
By degree, they're very close together, which means Mercury is combust. And so if you're working with numbers too much, and even probably with the media stuff, you just kind of get burnt out.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah. I cannot judge or use the metric of like... what they call the vanity metric of social media. I can't look at the numbers. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to feel like I'm affected by who's watching and how many people are watching. I try to show up as if the whole world was watching always. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise it's just like, what? Oh, so now all of a sudden, like, you're going to put on the act better just because you have a bigger crowd? Like, no. A true performer, a true entertainer is the same person in front of a crowd of 3 as they are in a crowd of 300.
Yeah.
And that's very important to me. I realize that because I cannot fake shit. And I hate that saying, fake it till you make it. No, I can't fake shit. I have to faith it till I make it. And part of my faith comes from my discipline to like showing up in that same way every fucking day. Otherwise, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And I could be hard on myself about that with maybe like Moon in Libra and Moon in Scorpio. They're both like Libra's like a very judgmental almost sign, and not even necessarily judging, just like aware.
Trying to balance everything.
Yeah, and then Scorpio would be like, if you're out of balance, like the retribution, like you said, it's like the Punisher.
That's the Saturn and Virgo, is that.
So that explains why I'm hard on myself through different eyes, but makes
usually
sense.
Saturn and Virgo. And this is a good, you talk about yourself as a Leo quite often. Saturn and Virgo, you have to be of service. And if you're not of service, Saturn will make you suffer. And so oftentimes we say, well, it's better to pick your poison.
Pick your poison.
Yeah, and go out that way.
So Saturn being in Virgo, yes, because truly Virgo is about service.
Yeah.
And Saturn's responsibilities.
You have to work for it and you have to earn it. And in a sense, you could say you have to earn that solitude. You have to earn that before you can go off and be alone. You've got to do your work first. Now you can go be alone. It's like trying to get away and you left half your work done and you're away and you're always thinking of it, right? How can you get any peace away? Yeah,
that makes sense.
And so especially younger, you probably went away leaving work quite often. And never got any peace, and never got any things just didn't get done, sort of idea.
Yeah, the most I always felt creatively free or like a channeling, like most purely was after a workout. Was after whether it was a workout as in like as a trainer I took a client through, or a workout that I did. I realized like that was part of Fit Hop as well. It was like before we even touch the microphone or get in the studio, first you got to get the heart beating, you got to get the blood flowing, and then you'll feel like a sense of confidence, which will it'll change the way you creatively express yourself. It'll just be more integral. So that makes sense. I can't just go in the studio if I haven't done the work necessarily first. Not just work out, but like That
Yeah.
makes sense. That totally makes sense. I can't just jump in the studio and be like, lights, camera, action. It's like, but bro, like, did you chop wood? Did you like carry water? Did you like, you don't even deserve to be in front of this light right now. Like,
and what you might find with this Saturn is just as you're setting up, oh, you said you were going to mow the lawn. Why isn't that done yet?
Yeah.
And you're going to lose. It's going to, that work, by not getting it, it's going to pull you away from yourself. It's going to take you away from what you're trying to do and try to accomplish here.
Totally.
And so your Saturn, that work is almost sitting behind you like a time bomb.
Wow. That's a great metaphor.
Just waiting for you, right?
Ticking time bomb. Making sure that I'm on, I'm in service. I'm using the power responsibly.
You've got to be dedicated. You've got to be in service. You've got to just work really hard. And then you can get a little peace. Then you can get that moksha, that sort of liberation of Pisces where you get away and you can kind of dream. But as long as work there, that dreaming is going to be blocked. And that, of course, as a creative person, that'll affect that whole sort of creative process.
Totally.
It's supposed to bubble from that.
Totally. Because my Leo in this Western sun is in the 12th house, apparently. And I remember being told that's, because you just mentioned Pisces. Like, in order for you to really be channeling the creative energy in the most pure way and be the Leo in the sense of like, hey, like, here's the solution. We got this, that optimism, which could often be delusional. You need to recognize that by being in the 12th house, Pisces, you need to balance out that delusional optimism with some degree of realism. And I'd say I don't want to be realistically pessimistic. However, there is some balance between those two. Delusionally optimistic, pessimistically realistic. And that's a balance there that I'm trying to constantly juggle to feel,
You go to the gym. I played in the gym for a little while. And there's this thing you kind of like put on this harness. And you drag these weights behind you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's what a Saturn 12th house can feel like. Anytime you're trying to do something, you're carrying that extra weight. Where really you could just like drop everything, take some time, deal with it, fix it, and then you would be free. But it's kind of just sort of gets piled up.
Right. So the taking it off is also the trusting the process, kind of like being more patient and trusting in timing. Is that kind of what you mean?
Saturn doesn't want you to be patient. He wants you to take responsibility.
Okay, he wants you to act. He wants you to get in action.
Yeah, take responsibility, accept the blame in a sense. Accept your role in things sort of idea.
Totally, which is where the true power is.
I always say Saturn's the main planet for freedom and power. Get your work done, complete your duty. Yeah. You'll be a very free person.
Totally. That feels right. That resonates. That calibrates as, because no one can take that from you when you've done your work, when you've done your training. Just like a fighter who goes in the ring, no one can take from him the fact that he prepared.
I was talking to a retired fellow yesterday. I wasn't sure if he was retired. I said, "Oh, you still working?" And he said, No, I finished my work. And he was very clear on that. He was very comfortable with that. My work is done.
And by work, what do you mean? Like, what was he referring to?
Well, he would. That's
like spiritual work. What was he referring to? Like, retired?
No, for him, it was just his work. He's just an average dude, right? A fish and wildlife guy or something like that, right? Okay. But in his retirement, he had really, he could really relax in it. He really felt like his work was done. Not just his work, but his children were grown. They'd had their universities. I think they were both, got married or just around getting married. And, it's like his work is done. I laughed at him. I said, after these marriages, if you were an Indian papa, an Indian grandpa of the home, your only job would be to eat shit and enjoy. From then, it would be everybody else's job to take care of the home, take care of the family, take care of everything. And Papa's free then. His job is done. It was beautiful to see how this man, he could feel it. You could just feel his
serenity,
Yeah. And he did a good work, good
job,
kids,
well
good
done.
Family.
Yeah,
good.
and the pride that comes from that. Not just pride, like in a toxic
work,
pride.
Right? That wasn't given to him. He worked his ass off, right?
Yeah.
And that's Saturn. It gives
something
you that.
Very virtuous about that.
Yeah.
So my Saturn's in the 12th house in which sign again in the Vedic?
Virgo.
In Virgo. So Saturn in Western for me is in Libra, which is apparently there with Pluto. What's the other one Michael Moon keeps talking to me about? But he did mention that, like the Saturn, you cannot cheat with Saturn in Libra. He's like, you just can't cheat. You know when your efforts have been strong and when your efforts and or disciplines, habits have been weak. You can't cheat. Basically, he said you're very much... So interesting. Virgo or Libra, either way, that Saturn placement makes sense. Like you have to do the work, period. Like
Yeah, the work.
Wow,
This
is so cool, man. This is so wild. Wild.
And you can see that, like, I'm giving you a reading, but you're also, it's kind of a philosophy lesson as well.
Yeah.
Like, really, I don't know, God, help me if I can expand your mind and help you see things from a different perspective as well, and that sort of thing, right?
And I even feel like I can actually step outside of me, even though like this is so Leo of me right now. I was like, my podcast episode is going to be a reading of my chart, you know what I mean? Like, but I can step outside of me and hear through, like
everyone can get something from this, even though it's your chart.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, because what it's doing for you as the astrologer right now is just like, all right, tuning into what does this human within the experience need to hear. But the truth is, and I always say this, maybe this is like the Librian in me. We don't win unless we all win. No one gets it unless we all get it. So we can actually all learn from hearing someone's reading. Every single chart has medicine for every single person.
Yeah. This is the beauty about being an astrologer is I kind of get to see the world so intimately through so many people's eyes.
Wow.
It's one of those things, like early on in astrology, any sense of thinking anybody was wrong or just any sense of judging everyone just really had to go out the window. Because how can I judge everyone if I'm predicting their whole future and this kind of thing? So it really opened me up and really had to let go of
because you
loads
really
of baggage.
Because you as like double slit experiment, you being the person who's got the lens through which he can observe these transits and this massive mapping science of navigation. It really matters now how you interpret and how you explain this stuff, because if you have any doubts, that's going to go through your reading. That's going to go right into, like, as an astrologer, you have the power to either like completely put the person in absolute fear and terror of their future, or set them up with pure confidence and faith.
Yeah, there's I'm also not separate from anybody's karma. And so there's also a side of that I can't help. There's nothing I can do about how, like, I can sit there. I've done readings. I've sit there and I've talked glowingly about a gazillion things. Then I say, it looks like maybe a little car accident next year. No problem, I don't think. Just maybe a little leg problem for a while, right? Some inflammation in your leg. But the person then, they'll just latch onto that one thing out of everything and go, oh my God, this accident's coming.
But like when you say an accident, you can see there's an accident. You don't know whether it's a car, but you can see an accident.
I can see your imagination.
Wow.
I can see, from the imagination, your whole psychological makeup, your whole, like, your little toe on your left foot.
Right. Which, like we said, when the thoughts are calmly collected and the imagination's properly directed, what does an astrologer have the ability of is to help direct the imagination, because you can see its predisposition, you can see its proclivity and how its mechanism. So that's a big responsibility, like you just said. Like, that means your karma is attached to that.
Oh, it's all over. Any teachers. I remember when I was first studying astrology in Tantric and Varanasi, India. Everybody went, "Don't do that."
Like, it's like yeah,
you're gonna absorb so much crappy karma.
So it's a definitely big undertaking to be an astrologer.
It really is, and I would say the same. Like Tantra was the same. There were even more like, "Don't do that. That's really bad." Astrology's one thing, but oh my God, don't. You'll destroy yourself.
Wow.
And this is true. Like if astrology sort of like, and on any time like counseling and things like this, anytime you're working really close with people as as a healer or a therapist, or I don't know, so many different words, you are taking on some of their bad karma. It becomes part of what it is. You take that karma for yourself. Right? It's like being a cop and all you're working with, like on the murder beat, right? And all you're working with is murderers and gangsters. You take so much of that karma on yourself.
Totally. It can make you very resentful. It can make you very cynical.
This becomes the great sacrifice of man. Remember earlier video I said, men get a lot of criticism. They just got to let it take it.
In our live stream that we just did, yes, you did mention
this is because a big part of that, you think of a man as the warrior, right? He takes up the sword and he goes to war, and we say, well, he gives the ultimate sacrifice. But the ultimate sacrifice isn't when he kills that other person, or it's not when he dies, it's when he kills somebody else, because they're permanently changed. And so now you've got this warrior, this killer sort of person. You can understand society. He's like, no, we don't want you in society. You kill people, right? You're very dangerous. And of course they say, no, I'm not. And then they go home and they have crazy bad dreams and stuff like this and all that, right? And so it's like,
because they know they are. It's weighing heavily on their conscience.
And so then they do go away. They go off, try to go away, or any kind of escapist tendencies then come out. I often say, like, society's fine. It's like everybody says equality of space for everybody. But I say, like, well, where's some space for the caveman? Where's the space for the person who doesn't want to belong to society and wants to go out and get away?
What do you mean, where's some space for that person?
Well, you almost need a second economy to keep people out of the economy, right? And
interesting. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, because these days, and we look at it, you're not allowed to be a caveman in any country. If you try to live a caveman life,
that's right.
Well, then you're just a homeless bump on the ground or whatever, right?
Not to mention, like, even on crown land, like, you're not allowed to just go and perch up and like camp.
Exactly. But we need Canada. We have so much space.
And I was going to say, isn't that what the monastery is? If you want to choose that path, that's why you have the monastery. And the monastery is a place where economically you don't need to worry about the expenses and the rent and the food. So you're saying there needs to be more of that, because that too is a huge part of our existence.
And in India, the Natha line, it's kind of the blue collar men who take that. They go away from everything. And we can see that in our own culture, right? All the blue collar men going homeless. But what they've done there is they've set up the ashram system, and it's open to anyone. And women can go also and stay there. Many times women go and kind of cook for the monks and things like that. But then it's just open to any wandering person, basically, can go and stay at those ashrams, and they might have to cook or clean, or they might have some duties there. But it's kind of that alternate economy, that alternate society. Yeah. Spiritual life.
Yeah.
You don't have to focus on career and job and family.
Totally. But that too is, in essence, giving equally as much to society, you're saying, or humanity, I should say, as is the doctor or as is the mechanic, or like these are equally as...
Well, what happens is the doctor and mechanic, when they have a stressful bad day, they go out and hang out at the ashram with the babas, and everybody smokes a little ganja and sings a few holy songs, and they go back to the city with the family and maybe get some advice about the family problems. And then they go back again.
So it's equally as important as any of these professions. That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep.
That's probably been written into even like Plato's Republic. I'm sure there was space for that as well, no?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, that was when I'm in India, I almost imagine it like the Greek schools of different philosophies all over the place. Varanasi is especially like that. There's a school of philosophy for every...
Colloquialism everywhere. Coming together and just, like...
It's all there. Every spirituality has a branch in Varanasi.
Right. Like the tree, like every branch, but they all come together, colloquialize, and that is like talking the news, which is the north, east, west, south, and this idea of not telling the news or watching and hearing the news on TV, which is the media, goddess of Medea, illusion. They do it by coming together like scholars or academics and have conversations. And I remember when my brother taught me that term, colloquialism, it really resonated, rather than just hearing someone else and trusting. Like, we got to discuss what's true and using that Socratean logic. And you're saying Varanasi is very much like that.
Oh, very much so.
Cool. Very cool. I remember one thing you mentioned last, when you mentioned, and there was a big aha moment for me, was that there was like the tower in which is and you were saying like, so there's the chamber in the king's. You broke something down really interestingly. You're like, so Leo, okay, it means like you're in the castle, but within the castle, you're in the warrior's chamber.
Okay,
and then you further went, and then within the warrior's chamber, you went into like, because it was Maga, something like that.
That was what you're talking about, your ascendant Maga, yeah.
Well, that was talk about the ascendant specifically.
I'm avoiding your ascendant actually on purpose.
Okay, that's fine, because I mean I do remember you already breaking it down, and it was like I got everything I needed to get from that. That was a big aha.
Well, that was part of it because we went into that ascendant before, and so I thought I'd go into the moon this period.
I love it. I love
a little bit more. It gives, again, it's about perspective. See yourself from your emotional body. See yourself from your physical body. Who am I as a spiritual being? These are all
so cool, man.
Yoga philosophy or Vedic science sort of agrees with psychoanalysis in that way, is that we're made up of all these different personalities that kind of, they're all interrelated and interconnected, and we have to, I don't know, the brain is the emperor of them. And so at the end of the day, we have to rule that city and keep them all balanced and keep them like, come on, guys, you guys get along. You guys, stop fighting, Totally. And then I study Chinese medicine as well. And so you can see the organs, Chinese medicine becomes parts of that city as well.
Right.
And then whenever there's an imbalance between those planets, it's like Chinese medicine. You get the internal imbalance. It's like between two organs are fighting each other, or one organ isn't doing its job, and the others have to kind of like try to work harder, and so eventually something breaks.
I appreciate you having such conscientiousness, man, and so like, like being aware. Like, we've already discussed that. Let's go into now the moon, and I'm very much interested in the moon, because I just know that like she, like the divine feminine, is the one we don't, like you said, Papa comes in and it's like instant authority and like, shock collar. But like, I feel like the moon, at least how I understand it being in Scorpio, is what rules the home and the behind the scenes. And from that, the root emerges from root to fruit. That's how we understand the fruits, or can predict and anticipate by understanding the roots. So,
well, if we think of because I always think of it, we're constantly like going around the zodiac. And so if you think of the space from Leo to Libra, where all your planets are, your ascendant's Leo and the others are in
Leo,
Libra.
Virgo, Libra.
Exactly. It's not very far away.
Not very far, no.
So Leo is where you've got a fresh, bright, new idea in Leo. Hey, I got it. It's brand new.
Right,
Look at that.
Right.
And as soon as in Virgo, someone goes, what's that? Oh, that doesn't look like very good. Some doubt comes in, right? Now you've got to kind of fix something. You've got to, something goes out of balance with your idea.
Yeah.
When you get just to the third one right there, right away, the first thing you have to do is balance out your bright idea with somebody else's, your vision with somebody else's.
Right.
So it's not very long in that sense of creation where you've got to balance your creation out, at least with one other person's.
Right.
There's got to be, so now there's some compromise.
Yes.
Now half of your truth has to get thrown away. Right?
Half of your truth has to be thrown away in order for that.
And you take half of somebody else's truth into your life. And that's sort of what Libra is all about. Like, that's how you find balance. You don't keep everything with you.
Right.
You have to give something.
That's
and what it is, your truth, you're giving it to them, and they're accepting your truth, and they're taking some of their own truth and offering it to you, and you're taking their truth.
Right.
And that's how two become one. And it's very powerful. A lot of movement like that going between Leo to Libra. And after Libra, it's like really nice. Like after, I kind of like the joke on this one, but after we do that and we share that, then you get to have sex in Scorpio.
Yeah, exactly.
You get the intimacy. You get to go deep.
Right.
You both get to transform, change. Right.
Which is what that does. A tantric, actual sacral intertwining of those.
So
wow.
So what also is happening there is Leo is up on the mountaintop. And by the time you get to Scorpio, that's this great cave entrance taking you into the underground. And so you'll go from Scorpio to Aquarius now, straight down underground
into the tomb,
into the tomb, into the crypt, into the depths of hell.
Tartarus, as they describe hell. Yeah,
and the depths of hell, like you picture it with this sort of bubbling and boiling. It's like a cauldron.
Cauldron is the word you use. Yes.
Well, it's at the bottom of the mountain, right? So eventually everything falls down there, and so you've got that cauldron collecting all the carrots and all the celery, and everything's just dropping in there, dropping in there, and being mixed together, right?
And bubbling up. So like it's almost like the toroidal field. Like it's literally all
exactly. So it gets to the bottom, and then it starts to bubble up, and now also the journey is coming back out of the ground, and that's Pisces. It's actually very ethereal, right?
Ethereal, yes.
And that's that Pisces sort of the essence is just rising up, but there's nothing. It's just a soup essence. You can't smell a carrot. You can't smell
right.
You don't know what any of it is. It's all metaphor. Blended, right? Yeah. And so it's a really nice soup. And they often say our life is about, like, you have to be a good cook. You got to blend the just right vegetables. And you got to cook it just right. Yeah.
Just like music, a good mix. It's like balancing like the different instruments, the different frequency, the dynamic range.
Exactly. And so then you're coming back up from Aquarius. And working your way, back out of the cave, you start coming out around Taurus, back up. And then that's why, like, Taurus and Gemini are so light and airy and easy.
Yes.
Right? Because you've been through hell, and now you've come out of hell. And now you're out of you can even see the truth. It's just right up there, right?
That makes sense.
It's just there. And then you leave Leo, it's like right away you're in Virgo. You're like, this sucks.
Shit, I had to look at Julia there, because she's like, yeah, I can relate to that, because you have such now vivid, I guess, perspective on, and that's why Virgo's maybe gift is its own curse. It's the ability to so accurately analyze and dissect.
Exactly.
So thus you'll see what's so good about life, but you'll also see what sucks about life.
And then Libras, and then you're like, okay, well, it's not bad.
Well, it's not that bad, because it's like Libra's like, we got it, and then it's like, hey, let's have fun with this. Let's juggle.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get
awesome.
to Taurus, and then you get to like the great hero. He's about to go into hell, and he's just like, let's do it. Go into the depths.
What an amazing, like, just tapestry. Just like, what do they call them? The sutras is like, it's like just different pearls, and each of them create this necklace, and it's just this incredible, like, it's like poetry, man. The whole zodiac, and whether it's looking at it from the west or the east, it's just the language with which we use to describe these archetypes, which describe how humans act and react. It brings like the art into the life. And I guess it's a work of art. Like, you're a scientist, but you're then also...
I'm an artist, man. I'm an temperamental and bitchy as any artist will ever be.
Man, so then what are your practices to kind of finish and wrap this up? I think this is a good time to be like, what are your practices thus to like stay so connected and keep yourself so also unattached, or like what are your practices? Because I can imagine when you give a reading and you almost like become that person, how do you then...
I don't know. I keep my focus on Shiva. I try to do my mantras and my singing as much as I can.
The mantras, yes.
Mantras are important. Singing.
Yes.
I do a lot of sitting. For me, a huge practice is just walking. Like, I do these huge walking pilgrimages, but even if I'm like living somewhere, I'll usually go for these quite long walks a few times a week. And
that is very therapeutic. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And I do so much like research and study and so much in the books. And so it's really nice to just drop it. And when you're walking, like you're not looking at your phone. You're not thinking of any of that. So I can really
nowadays when you're walking, a lot of people are looking at their phones and bumping into shit. But I know what you mean. Yeah. Like literally just going on the journey and
it's really easy to sort of drop everything and go.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But the mantras, that makes sense, man. You said Shiva, just real quick. Shiva's the destroyer or the creator? Because I know Vishnu is the sustainer.
Shiva's the destroyer.
The destroyer. Okay.
But if you're a Shaivite, then Shiva's sort of like everything. He embodies the whole universe.
Okay. So embodying it all and letting go of it all by just going for a walk and allowing the integration and the magic to sort of happen.
And then when I'm walking as pilgrimage or walking for travel, it's also, I get to see the world through like so many different eyes and so many different places.
And being your Western, I remember looking at your chart, double rising in Sun Sag, that makes so much sense for you, because it's like Sag is the adventurous energy. It wants to constantly be on an adventure, traveling. And so like whether looking once again through the perspective and view of the Eastern or the Western, you could see that the soul, you can describe its purpose, its mission, you can see its predisposition. There's so much you can draw from it. And I really want to just take this moment to thank you for helping me really see a greater perspective. And hopefully all of you who've watched this can see that perspective as well. And really like, hopefully this inspires people to like, be like, what is my chart? Especially people like me who are already astrologically adept, like get another perspective. And here's like, to me, you're like the Michael Moon, but of the West. Michael Moon's like my go-to astrologer of the, of the East, of the West. You get what I mean? Like, so like 100%, I give you 5 stars, man. Like, and you said you got all your stuff's already on Spotify, right? There's
tons of stuff on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. Amazing. You find me.
So guys, do your research, become your own astrologer, and remember, when it's time to consult with the best. And when it's time to connect the dots, remember, when the mind is calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected. I'm your host, Nico. Remember who you are.